So it's 6:30. Nice to see all your faces. I like that everybody's like actually on video tonight. This is sweet. Oh, is there an update on in-person events? Well, I'll let Kate riff off of that, but maybe we can start with a little, maybe the Serenity Prayer again, or what would you like to do for your cheers? We've been doing class cheers.
So let me do something nerdy. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hello. I am I'm going to say cheers to, I've had 4 ideas go through my head in the last 3 minutes, but what I want to say cheers to is that today is February 23rd, 2022. I really am looking forward to seeing you all, like in your body, in person, sometime soon. Maybe we hug. I'm a hugger and a kisser, but haven't been able to do a lot of that lately. You got to be comfortable. So let's cheers to the fact, and because I don't have any beverage, I'm going to use this singing bowl because that's the only prop I have. My husband's Christmas gift from his mother. Let's cheers to seeing each other again soon, because as of March 2nd, technically, which is next Wednesday, a week from today, Buddy's excited too. We are permitted to have in-person events again. Woohoo! And for, the mentors in the room, and Vanessa and I and Taylor, and it's been a long road here. And so cheers to that. And so let me, while we're riffing on that, actually, Vanessa, why don't you go and then I'll talk about COVID. or I can just do that right now. We have some precautions in place that I should probably lay out for people, and I'll put a little thing in the chat. Beatrice, I would love to hug you, so I'm going to hold you to that. Yeah, Vanessa, if you want to do the agenda, I'm going to find those 3 bullets to put in the chat about COVID stuff.
Sure. Has anybody been watching Encanto as much as me and my 3-year-old have been watching? We don't talk about COVID. No. Okay. Here's tonight's agenda. We are at some point going to talk about site assessment, and we have a little Jeopardy game using polls. Kate's going to review this model site assessment submission. If you've watched this week's video, you know that there is no quiz or assignment, so you get a little break, a little breath, a little time to think about and plan for your site assessment project, which you'll learn more about this evening. And then there will be question and answer time about the project. And finally, a mentor breakout room session where we can have a time to kind of reflect on the unit that we just went through, since this is actually the last piece of our Identify unit this evening, this week, and then reflecting on our expertise discussion summary. The wonderful Uma Karaganti, I hope I'm saying your last name right, one of our mentors, pulled together everything from the Jamboard from that first class. If you remember way back in January, our discussion about defining expertise. So that's all pulled together in a summary, which I will share with you. And we can kind of reflect on that. And then any additional questions on the site assessment project, you can do all of that in your smaller breakout rooms with the mentors and interns, and just any other questions you might have for mentors as we move forward. And then reporting back to the larger group to address common questions, and then we'll dismiss. So it should be a fun, interactive night with the opportunity to see your mentors. The other thing I'm excited to announce is that we have planned regional meet and greets. We realize that by having this course online, there's a little bit of a barrier to people to start moving to an in-person session. So we're trying this out at this time for the first time. We used to do them before the class started, but we actually think it's better to do them in March, April, when you've had more of a chance. You could take a little picture, but we will also be sending these out to you in a class announcement. This is an opportunity to get together with your mentor and intern group. Basically, you want to go to the region that you're planning to volunteer in. Some of your project leaders or leaders of volunteer activities will be at these locations. These are in person. The COVID guidelines for those locations apply. I will go into a tiny bit more detail. I don't know why they're not in chronological order, but the southern region will be here at the URI Botanical Gardens on campus, Saturday, April 30th, led by the Southern Region Coordinator. Really just an informal gathering. Hopefully there's food. We will have a registration link in a little bit that I will send out to you all. There is a rain date for that one since it's outdoors for May 1st, which is this Sunday. If you would like to attend the Central Region, that'll be at Roger Williams Park Botanical Center in Providence. Outdoors in the gardens or indoors if the weather is bad and the beautiful greenhouse is there. Eastern Region is at the Veterans Home Greenhouse. A beautiful structure that was actually created and envisioned and fundraised for by Master Gardener volunteers when the building was renovated. That's on Sunday, April 3rd. And then Northern is to be determined. We are really close to getting that date. So hopefully by the time I send the announcement out, we will have the date for that. It's possible your mentor won't be at all of these if they have interns at many different regions, but we'll do our best. We can always pair you with someone else if your particular mentor isn't there. But we just think it's a great opportunity to kind of break the ice, start attending things in person. And of course, all optional, not required. Attend at your own comfort level. Anything you want to share about this, Kate? I will actually stop sharing now and pass the mic to you.
Those sound like fun parties. The only thing I would add is all the events that are planned for you all, there's a lot of work that goes into them. So do whatever you can to attend if you're able. It's a great way to network, and we've been in a virtual learning environment like this for 2.5 years. Usually, in the past we've been in person. And so these meet and greets are a fantastic way to actually meet people who are fellow volunteers and veteran Master Gardeners. So those sessions are for you. I would just recommend you take advantage of them. There's a question about going to more than one, Vanessa, in the chat, which is, I'll leave that one to you.
Yep, you can attend as many as you'd like. And if you have questions, if you're a mentor and you don't know where your interns are from, that information should all be on the documents. Beatrice, maybe you can field that question. You can either ask Beatrice and Corliss, because I believe we have a document that has it all written out. Is that right?
Great.
I'm sorry, I was a little distracted when you were.
Oh, there was a question about which mentor was asking me which region are my interns from. I'd like to attend all the ones that they're attending. I believe there's a document that we can send.
Yeah, we'll send something out once we get that last date firmed up.
Awesome. So I'm just, I don't want to be punitive or unfun in any way, but I am your loving program administrator. And so that means I need to share, I just need to share a little bit of information. I'm going to enter it in the chat, and I'm going to say it out loud and share a slide because we have mentors here. So I'd like the mentors to be aware of this. And then all of you, as you go out into the world and start volunteering as a Master Gardener, this is kind of how we are acknowledging that COVID is still around, and making sure that we're able to have volunteers engaged out in the community in a way that makes everyone feel safe. And so if you are coming onto URI property, so on the Kingston campus, at East Farm, at the agronomy farm, anywhere on the campus, because the rules on campus say that vaccination is required and masks are required, you need to make sure we have your proof of vaccination just flashed like this. We don't want the file. And if anyone has questions about what I'm about to say, just get in touch with me. I'll clear it up for you. But I'm going to go through this quickly because communication is something we always want to take advantage of. If you are coming to volunteer on campus and you're going to be indoors, you have to wear a mask all the time. And we need to know that you've been vaccinated and boosted. Those are the rules. They're not my rules. They're not Vanessa's rules. They're not Beatrice's rules. But they are the rules. And so thank you in advance for your cooperation. You can come to the Mallon Center and give me a hug and show me your card, or you can show a volunteer designee. If you are coming to campus, most likely we've already spoken to you and you understand the procedure, but if anyone has any questions, let me know. The good news is if you come on campus, but you're going to be outside, you don't need to wear a mask. And we just ask that you are vaccinated and boosted to volunteer with the Master Gardener program. Similarly, if you are volunteering off campus, which is what the majority of you will be doing out in the world with our partner organizations. My husband throwing pans around. You should follow the rules of your host organization. So mentors, I'm really leaning on you here to kind of be messengers around this. You know, if you're at the Roger Williams Park Botanical Garden, Roger Williams Park Botanical Center, Leanne Freitas's rules are the rules we will follow, etc. So again, we love everyone's cooperation with this stuff. This is the last not fun thing I'm going to talk about, I promise.
Hey, do you mind just addressing some of the questions in the?
Sure. Absolutely.
People can attend outdoor events because we won't be checking vaccination cards for the meet and greet. Is that correct?
That's correct. Because they, so the meet and greet, for example, if we apply the rules I just talked about, the meet and greet for the southern region is in the botanical gardens. You will be outside. And so you don't need to wear masks and you don't need to show proof of vaccination. We're asking for that for people who are coming onto campus and volunteering inside. For example, folks that work on the hotline will show us their vaccination cards because they'll be working indoors. Same thing with anyone working in the greenhouses, which we reviewed last night when you were all on Zoom with me then. And to Derek's question, once you show your vax and boost record, we mark it down on a Google sheet and you're all set. You don't have to show it every time. It's just, again, we're respecting the rules on the campus and following the same protocols that the university has set up so that they can keep the congregate nature of the campus rolling. So I will answer the questions in the chat when I'm not presenting, because I want to keep us going here, if that's okay with everybody.
Answer. Sure. If you want to go to the next thing, I'll just take a second to answer a few things. The Zoom last night was only for people volunteering with the greenhouses. You didn't miss anything. So sorry about that confusion. We will share more information about each location of meet and greets, COVID vax and COVID requirements. So just give us a little bit of time to get that stuff organized. We just want you to save the date in the meantime. Give us a minute to get all that information out to you, but we will be happy to do so. Thank you.
Yes, everything will be great. So let's do some Jeopardy because I'm curious. I have a few slides to kind of give a summary before I talk about your project, but I think it would be interesting to see what folks learned from the recorded lecture you watched. So let's see, site assessment. Somebody just give me a thumbs up that you can see that.
It's there.
Okay, great.
Want me to read it?
Sure, I'll read it for everybody. So the first Jeopardy question, this is for 250 seeds, is a process for identifying the natural built and social characteristics of the landscape and their relationship to each other is called what? Choose one answer, please, and I will close the poll once we get about halfway there. Who's having fun already?
This is all for funsies, not for grade. If you can't see it, we apologize. Just don't answer in the chat because people have asked not to, no spoilers, please. So thank you. So fun, says Stephanie.
All right, I'll give it 5 more seconds. 3, 2, 1. So all but 6 of you who answered got the right answer. Can you all see those results? Great job. The answer is site assessment. Site assessment is definitely the process that we hope you all will come to love and live with in your capacity as a gardener or a landscape steward, a landscape manager, a landscape lover, whatever you want to call yourself. Site assessment, it's not the greatest name for it. It sounds a little academic and dry, but it's the process that I taught in those recordings, and I'm going to go over a couple more points about them. So next question is, and this one's for 500 seeds, common circulation pathways, access points into a space, and recreation areas are examples of this often understudied characteristic of the landscape. Uh-oh, that poll is a little off, but that's okay. Again, common circulation pathways, access points into a space, and recreation areas are examples of this often understudied characteristic of the landscape. And I'm going to close it in 3, 2, 1. So that was an easier one. You had 2 of the right answer listed there. The last one would have been built. The correct answer is social. The social elements of the landscape are, kind of, if you want to think of it as how people interact with the landscape itself. And that can be really important. I think I mentioned in your recorded lectures that, figuring out how people use the space, an existing space, or thinking about how people may use the space based on design decisions is really important, because the best example I can give is, how many times I've seen people cite patio areas right next to where the trash is kept. It's not really a comfortable or nice smelling arrangement, So when you think about these kinds of things, you also don't want to put a main pathway in a landscape through like an area where you recreate, where people are playing bocce and you're going to break your ankle or stuff like that. So the social elements of the landscape are very important to consider. All right, we ready for the next one? All right. So this one says, this is for 750 seeds, calculated by dividing the rise of an area by the run, or the distance. This is an important consideration in the design process that is necessary, especially when thinking about how water moves on your site. I'll read that one more time. This is calculated by dividing the rise of an area by the run, or the distance from between 2 points. This is an important consideration in the design process that's necessary when thinking about how water moves on your site. It is really gratifying as an educator to see people get the right answer. I've got to share that. Thank you for doing your homework and watching the videos. I hope I made you laugh. Yes, Celeste, that's absolutely right. You wouldn't put a couch in front of the front door, because that doesn't make any sense. Okay, 5 seconds for this question. 3, 2, 1. Great job. So the correct answer is, what is slope? The slope is usually in a percent form. So, and you would find that by dividing the rise of an area, which you calculate by measuring the vertical distance between two sticks with a level piece of string, for example, by the distance between those two sticks. There are many videos about how to figure this out. So if I went too fast in the recording or just now, it's not a tough thing to kind of get your head around if you give it a little bit of time. But slope is really important. For example, and this is kind of a trick, for rain gardens, which 5% of you answered as the answer here, because rain gardens, for example, the bottom of a rain garden should always be flat, because what you're trying to do is site a rain garden in a place where water will flow into it and then stop and rest and allow all the water in it to infiltrate down. If you picture a rain garden being on a slope, you know, water flows with gravity. So water's flowing. It's just going to keep going. And it's almost like the rain garden isn't there. So you would want to determine what your slope is on a site prior to managing stormwater, because sometimes it's really important that you don't have a slope. All right. For 1,000 seeds, here's question 4. American beach grass and rugosa rose are great indicators of sandy, well-drained soil conditions common to dunes. Weeping willow, tupelo, and skunk cabbage are great indicators of this soil condition and ecosystem. I'll read that one more time. American beach grass and rugosa rose are great indicators of sandy, well-drained soil conditions common to dunes. Weeping willow, tupelo, and skunk cabbage are great indicators of this soil condition and ecosystem. These questions are getting a little tougher. So if you think about where you might see skunk cabbage in a month or so, where are you likely to see that? I might see some folks changing their answer. Give you a couple more seconds. You saw skunk cabbage today, Jen. Oh, that makes my life. I actually saw some daffodil. I think they were daffodils. Oh, Alan has skunk cabbage in his yard. Okay, 3 seconds. Really great job. The answer is a poorly drained wetland. I think, and so the way to think about this is, you know, those are weeping willow, tupelo, and skunk cabbage are indicator species for wet soils. Skunk cabbage, you know, that's one of the best indicators that you are physically in a wetland when you see that. If you have skunk cabbage in your yard, for example, you should not be mowing near it, because that's actually a wetlands. Might have been converted to lawn, but those species are great indicators of really wet soils that are not well drained. And so that was the correct answer there. Good job to all of you who got that. That was a tough one. So last question, we'll call this one the daily double. These are all for free hugs. That's what I really should have said. Okay, the last one here, daily double. Lawn fertilizer, when applied improperly, contributes to excess amounts of this in surface runoff, causing algal blooms in surface water bodies. one more time. Lawn fertilizer, when applied improperly, contributes to excess amounts of this in surface runoff, causing algal blooms in surface water bodies.
Okay, I can't allow this to continue without a missed opportunity of. Da-na-na, da-na-na.
This is why somebody could make a lot of money. I'm going to say it loud enough for my husband, the software developer. Music for Zoom. We need a plug-in. I should have been singing. Okay, this was okay. So I'm gonna end. Okay. I'll give it 3 more seconds. 3, 2, 1. So there is only one reason why point source pollution is not correct. And that is because lawn fertilizer, if you recall, the difference between point sources of pollution and non-point sources is that point sources, you can point to where they came from. So a pipe, for example, that is releasing dye from a textile mill, and that dye is going right into a river. That is an example that dye coming out of the pipe is a point source pollutant. You can point to the pipe it's coming out of. Whereas lawn fertilizer, I'm not going to ask anyone to raise their hand if they use it, but if I did, I would assume that more than one of you are going to raise your hand. Doesn't make you a bad person, just to clarify. But my point is that if we find nitrogen in surface water, we can't point to whose house it was applied at. Do you know what I'm saying? And therefore, lawn fertilizer is an example of a non-point source pollutant. Therefore, the correct answer here is nitrogen. Nitrogen is basically fertilizer. When you add nitrogen to plants, they get very happy, and that can cause big problems when there's too much of it in freshwater bodies. So I hope you all just earned whatever 250 plus 500, 15, 2,500 plus the daily double. Could have potentially earned 5,000 hugs. I'll split those between Beatrice and Vanessa. So, so great job, everybody. So I just want to go over some quick points from the presentation. I want to point out to all of you that as a evolved landscape steward, as you all are becoming now as Master Gardener hopefuls at the University of Rhode Island, these are the different categories of information you gather during site assessment. And I like talking about this particular slide again, because to the extent that you can minimize your disturbance on a site, that is really what's best for the ecosystem and best for ecosystem balance. When we start modifying the landform of an area with big machinery, or you could argue when we start pumping lots of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere and we're changing the climate, as you get further down this list, it's much more harmful to modify things. And so we don't like to see people redirecting streams on their properties. We don't like to see people regrading properties when it's not necessary. We don't like seeing excess greenhouse gas emissions because they're causing climate change. I think the stuff at the top of this list are things we can modify if we need to, like if your soil is sandy and doesn't have enough organic matter, you can add organic matter. Conversely, if it's really compacted, you can add a little bit of sand and make it a little bit more well drained. So I just, I guess, draw your attention to the fact that these categories are ordered in this way for a reason. And as landscape stewards, it's important that you understand that what you do to the landscape in aggregate has a real significant effect on ecosystem health. How many of you have seen, bye Skyla, how many of you have seen this fact sheet before? John Wolf, if you didn't raise your hand, we would have had serious problems. So this is this is kind of a cool, it's very cool actually. But it's a good example of, my daughter's bestie is leaving. Bye, Skyla. So it's a really good example. On the front side, there are images of common lawn plants. We've changed the name of this fact sheet actually and removed the word weed from it, because it's kind of a derogatory term. But hear me out on this. If you use this identification sheet, you go out in a month or so or a month or two, start noticing some of the undesirable turf grass companions that are popping up in your lawn. If you notice crabgrass, for example, in a bunch of different places, and maybe plantain, if you flip this sheet over, you've observed that crabgrass and plantain are growing on your lawn. Okay, so you go here to crabgrass and you notice that it's shaded out under soil is compacted. Everybody see that? It is also shaded under plantain, and those are the two conditions on the horizontal axis here that these plants have in common. So if you ask me, if you're seeing crabgrass and plantains growing in your lawn, chances are your lawn is compacted. You can use this to determine other issues that you might have. For example, if you see moss and nutsedge. So I'll go back to the image. Many of you know what moss looks like, but nutsedge is this it's kind of like this rock band player plant here with the crazy hair. If you see nutsedge and moss in your lawn, if you go on the back of this sheet, you look at moss and nutsedge, well, those both share that the area is too wet. So what that would tell me if I notice that is that you might be trying to grow lawn in a place where there would be skunk cabbage if you hadn't mowed it and seeded it. So again, the point I'm making here is that you have a lot of power when you observe. And this was a resource that our late and beloved colleague Rosie Sherry made. And it's done wonders for a lot of people, including my family, in figuring out why things are the way they are. And so instead of, for example, just noticing that you have dandelions and crabgrass, instead of going and getting a chemical to control those weeds, you might core aerate to control compaction instead. And that's an integrated pest management approach to having these undesirable plants in your landscape. Somebody asked, why is white clover undesirable? That is a perfect example of why we took the word weed off of this. White clover is not undesirable, but it does indicate that your soil might have low nitrogen. Sometimes it indicates compaction. It also indicates a lower soil pH, and that can be not great in some situations. So again, use this sheet to help yourself. It's a really wonderful resource, and it's unique to URI Cooperative Extension. Just quickly, I know I with limited time here, but just please remember that every curb is a coastline. And even if you live in Foster or West Greenwich, where I am, what you do in your landscape has the same impact that it would if you lived on a coastal property. All because we're all part of a watershed. Everything we do, no matter where we are, ends up in some body of surface water that ends up draining to a low point, which on Earth is the ocean. And so, everything that hits the ground is flowing by streams and through ponds and hopefully through wetlands to be cleansed. But you really have to be aware of the fact that every curb is a coastline, no matter where you are. How do we mitigate the effects of stormwater? Well, you can do what this person did and buy a native meadow mix and have Joe Pye and Rudbeckia and lots of other wonderful things growing in the backyard, and only mow up to it. So you're giving back this part of the lawn. And I think there's somebody in the window of that house just staring at it, which is the same thing I'd be doing. And lastly, from this point forward, I hope when you all go into the garden center and you're like, oh, I've got like $150 to spend, or I have $20 to spend, whatever it is, or I have these 4 seed packets to sprinkle, that you're thinking about vertical layers because of how wonderful that is in managing stormwater when it rains. Water falling on multiple layers helps it to evaporate before it turns into runoff, and also multiple layers add more habitat value to an area. So we really, we love to see folks planting with multiple vertical layers. This is a trail on Cape Cod. Absolutely beautiful. When you all bust those mowers out, because I know you can't wait and I can't either, make sure that the lever thing, that's the technical term, you can put it on 4 and it's going to be okay. It'll be okay if you set it to 4. It shouldn't be on 1, you don't, unless you have a golf course in your backyard. 2, no, it's the days of 2 inches of lawn mowing are over. 3, if you need to go there first, that's fine, but your lawnmower can be on 4. And the analogy I'll give you there, or the metaphor, or whatever the right word is whatever you see above ground for biomass, or, the actual blades of grass, is directly proportionate to what's growing underground. So if you were to cut my leg off at my knee and then ask me to run, it's not going to be a good scene. So we need to let plants grow, grass included, because it lets the roots be stronger. I hope that makes sense. And I hope I've convinced you all that when I randomly see you on the street and I say, what's your mower on? You'll say, oh, 5. Oops, we did it backwards because I could tell how smart you are. So I am going to go through the project, which is due over 2 months from now. So if you're having anxiety, push it away. Everything's going to be fine. You're going to do a great job. It's going to be a fun activity. I hope you'll use it for a long time. The purpose of this activity and exercise, and the reason we have folks who are taking the Master Gardener Program core training do it, is that it really forces you to become a true observer in the landscape and then not make decisions based on what you don't know. And we know, from what we see about how individual behavior can impact ecosystem health, that's really important. And so you are going to do this assignment that's going to give you the experience to complete a landscape site assessment based on the concepts that you learned in the recordings you watched, and the things I've said so far tonight. I hope you now understand that site assessment is really a crucial part of gardening and landscape management, and you should be doing it whether you're renovating an existing space, installing new gardens, and most importantly, when you're talking to people in your capacity as a Master Gardener volunteer moving forward. We hope that you will be able to talk to people about how important observation and analysis is, which is what site assessment is. So this assignment is stepped out. It's pretty clear. The first thing you need to do is choose a study area, and this is usually the thing that most people get tripped up on. As I told the Home Horticulture Certificate, which meets on Thursday nights, and they do this version of this project as well. If you have a 5-acre property and you want to do your site assessment on 5 acres, that's fine. If you have a postage stamp lot in Central Falls or Providence, you do your site assessment on that. That's fine. The purpose of this, again, is to get you outside. You can't do the assignment inside, so you have to go outside. That's the first thing. And just gets you really observing what's around you. So the study area should be a space that's familiar with you, that you are allowed to be on. Just leave that there. It can be, as this says, an entire outdoor space around your home, or a portion of a property you live on if it's a larger lot, or you can do the whole thing. The scale is really up to you. So once you figure out what your study area is, you're going to create a base map. And as you heard in the lecture, that really is just marking some general built elements that exist on the site. So, on a residential property, that's going to be, here's the house, and here's the driveway, and maybe here's a fence, and there's a shed in the back, and maybe where the septic system is. We don't ask for that, but it's a very important thing to know. Maybe you mark where the well is. The base map is really kind of like your drawing base. You should put a north arrow on. You all can read this. I would suggest you read this assignment, which is up in Brightspace, like 3 times. I think I presented this to the home horticulture certificate, and people gave feedback that having them read it really helped with their understanding. And so just read it a couple times. We've been doing this for a long time. We think it's pretty clear. So you will get 40 points for the assignment out of 100 if you have a north arrow, your existing buildings, that's the house and a shed or something, the garage, where the utility lines are, because of course that's important, related to trees or larger shrubs. And the limits, we say, of all paved surfaces. So, where the patio is, or the pathways to the front door or the driveway. And don't forget to add your name. So you'll get 40 points just for that. And I'm going to show you a couple examples before I'm done with you this evening. The third step is to go on to the back of the assignment or the second page and consider the characteristics numbered 2, 3, 4, and 5 in figure 2. So I'm just going to go forward to that for a moment. Number 2 is zones of use. You'll see that you're actually, if you put utility lines in, or areas where, the kids play soccer, or where you usually set up badminton, you're going to get another 5 points for that. We also want to know what plant hardiness zone you live in. We want to know where the sun rises and where it sets. We want to know maybe where the prevailing wind is coming from. You can wet your finger and stick it up in the air and take your best guess, or you can put down, westerly winds come this way in the winter. Just do your best. Again, the point here is that you're observing on your landscape. So again, that step 3 is filling out those characteristics numbered 2, 3, 4, and 5 on the back of the sheet. If you do all 4 of them, you will get another 20 points. So you're already up to a 60. For step 4, you're going to actually just pick 2 of 3, numbers 6, 7, and 8 on the other side. So I'm going to go to that slide again. You will either figure out your soil pH by having your soil pH tested. You can do that through the Master Gardeners or send it away to UMass or UConn. Do that and dig a test pit, as I talked about in the recorded videos, or a perk test. Figure out what your drainage is. You could do those 2, or you could drop the soil pH and mark areas where you are prone to experiencing erosion because of slope. You can do erosion and soil pH, etc. You only have to pick 2 of those 3, and you will get an additional 10 points. And then we'd love for you to identify 4 plants to the species level. Is Vanessa or Taylor or Corliss going to go to your house and check that you're correct? No. And in fact, a lot of this exercise is on the honor system. Again, I know I've said it like 17,000 times already, but the point of this is to get you outside, observing, using the tools that you've been given through this class. Keying out a plant, for example, that Dr. Maynard's helped you learn about. So we want you to identify 4 plants and you'll get 5 points for each one you do. We'd love for you to give us the Latin and common names. So, you know, in the case, if you have a red maple on your property, the state tree, you're going to also include Acer rubrum, which is the Latin name. And most importantly, we want to indicate where they are on your plan. And I'll show you how to do that in a moment when I show you examples. Oops.
You have some questions. You want to maybe go over those really quick? I can shout them out for you.
Sure.
Okay, great. So there was a question about regarding the soil pH, are we sending a sample somewhere or doing the test ourselves?
You can do whatever you want. You can send it to the Master Gardener soil testers when that ramps up. That's probably, if you choose to do your soil pH, I'll give you a little pro tip. Probably not going to be able to do that till April. I mean, it is mud season today, but it's going to be frozen mud season in 2 days. So the ground has to be thawed to get a good soil sample. So that might be the last thing you do. You can buy a soil pH testing meter if you want to do that. Otherwise, we have resources through the University of Connecticut and the University of Massachusetts if you'd like to get a full profile done. Otherwise, the Master Gardener program offers free soil pH and textural analysis. You just have to make sure that you're giving yourself enough time.
Great. And we've got a question about when you do an area that's about half an acre in different soils regarding soil drainage, if the area is different, do you have to do the test in more than one place? So you're just wanting them to do it in one place or indicate where the drainage is. Can you kind of clarify?
Yep. So as I'll show you in a moment when I show you these examples, if you want to be like top-notch, super URI Master Gardener intern, love of my year, you can do this in multiple places. We want you to go through the exercise of determining what soil drainage is or where there's erosion occurring in a spot or two. We want you to go through the process. So again, a lot of this is on the honor system. Thank you for the question. I appreciate that. And Logan, that's a good question. The answer is a big no on that. Logan asked, can we use the color of a hydrangea flower to determine the pH? That's a good one. We'd prefer that you actually get it tested because you'll actually get a textural analysis too. So those steps 1 through 5 that I just went through, choosing the study area and then doing the base map, filling in some or observing information and recording it on your plan, doing some plant ID, that all represents the inventory part of site assessment. So you're observing things in the landscape or researching information like I talked about in the recordings. The analysis part is in step 6. So step 6 says in Brightspace under your site assessment assignment, we want you to answer the following questions in 2 to 3 sentences. You do not need to write like an essay. You can if you want. Again, the more you do, I think the more you're going to get out of this, but we'll take 2 to 3 thoughtful sentences answering what did you learn from this exercise? And what will you do differently in your garden after completing this site assessment or now that you've completed site assessment? So that's going to get you, maybe you'll talk about the fact that you've recognized you have an erosion prone area on a slope and you really need to put some plants in to hold the soil down. Or maybe you'll give an example of noticing that there's an area of your lawn that is always in full shade, and no matter what you do to get the turf grass to grow, it's not going to change the fact that you don't have sun. So maybe you'll try to do something else in that area, etc. So that's the analysis part. And just the last thing is that you want to either take a photo of your assignment or scan it so that it becomes a file like a JPEG or a TIFF or a PDF. We're asking for it as a PDF and upload it to the Brightspace quiz section. If you have questions about doing that, I'm sure Taylor and your team of TAs can help. The project's worth a quarter of your grade. And so if that's not an indicator about how important site assessment is as a landscape enthusiast, I don't know what is. So I wish you all a lot of luck. You'll notice, for those of you asking questions about taking a soil sample, if you just Google URI Master Gardener Program soil sample, you will find a page that actually tells you how to take a good soil sample. I would recommend you do that, educate yourself a little bit, and then follow those instructions. So this is the sheet. This is the first page of your assignment. This is the second page. As I said earlier, you're going to get an additional 10 points to bring you up to 100 for these analysis related questions. The more thoughtful you are, the better. I think it becomes more valuable when you go, okay, I have all this information, so what? And then make some thoughts. So I'm going to show you a couple examples of past projects. And then you're going to go into breakout rooms. I'm sure I'm over time, but we call this one the minimalist. And honestly, if you look at the project sheet compared to this little drawing here on graph paper, the person did a fine job. They answered all the questions. They went through the exercise, and this is fine. And this received a decent grade. We're not asking you to become an artist overnight. So this is an example of kind of doing the minimum that we're asking for. This we call the A student. This person color coded their plan. They were pretty meticulous with it, keeping it neat and legible. You know, you can tell they took a bit more care to make sure that they could add to it. And so again, we'd call that the A student. And then we have the overachiever, which I think for next year I might change these titles. In no way are any of these better than the others. We just want you to kind of see what some folks have done. So this was a site assessment that was done, and it's quite thorough. It was done on a free drafting program on the computer. Person was just more comfortable doing it that way. You know, and it's really quite joyful to go through these projects in the spring and see how much blood, sweat, and tears you all put into them. And just knowing how much you're learning while you're doing it makes it really wonderful. So again, you're going to do fine. You're going to do great. You're going to learn a ton. I will answer a couple questions before we break off here, but just please remember that, you know, this doesn't define you as a person. It doesn't define you as a gardener or a student. We want you to do the best you can. We know that it's a valuable exercise to go through. And I think if you really want to kind of do the highest and best thing for yourself, it's go through this process in a way that's going to help you, especially if you're studying your home landscape, which is what the majority of people do.
A couple of questions you can answer right off the bat while you take a look is it's an individual project. However, if you'd like to do it as a group, we could be open to that if you're working on a project with others, as I know you are, Alicia. You know, if you don't want to do your home landscape, but you're looking at doing a new community project, absolutely use this as an opportunity to do a site assessment there. In fact, as a master gardener, if you become a school garden mentor or a project leader, you might be doing this kind of site assessment for community projects in the future.
Yes.
I think the answer is if people live on the same property, can they do the site assessment together? I think that's okay, right, Kate? I mean,
yeah, you know, again, it's, you all are here because you want to be here. You've paid money to be here. You're giving a lot of your time to this. We want you to get the most out of it. So if you have a friend that you live with, and you want to do the project together, just make sure you're both learning something. You know, I think that's fine.
You don't have to do the full yard. You can choose a smaller study area. A lot of people do that. They just focus in on one little area. Is there a program that you suggest that folks could use, like a simple one if they have horrible handwriting or don't want to do it by hand and are more computer savvy?
I would crowdsource that. I do stuff by hand. So, and that these programs change. There's new ones all the time. So I think, Google's your friend in that regard. But if anyone's aware of any free drafting programs that they've used in any other capacity, feel free to share. Otherwise, I would just Google and look at the reviews. But again, we get these questions when people bring this stuff up. Do you have to pay to get a soil meter? Absolutely not. You can get a free soil test from a Master Gardener program. Do you have to pay to get a drafting program on your computer? Absolutely not. You just need a pencil and a piece of paper. It's about the journey here. So, and I would say if you're husband and wife and you're going to do site assessment together, I think that sounds lovely and beautiful, and just put both your names on the assignment.
And both turn them in so that we don't think that somebody didn't submit one. So make sure you're both entering them into your own bright spaces. What is it, Dave? Joy in the journey? Did I say it right this time? Joy in the journey. We always hear from students every year that this is one of their favorite parts of the course and they get so much out of it. So we've kept this project for many years because it's just so valuable. I'm excited about all the excitement in the chat.
Is anyone having like anxiety?
Palpitation.
Really don't. I hope that it'll make you just look at the landscape differently. And if any of you, we don't make it really a thing to talk about, turning your newfound Master Gardener knowledge into a profitable enterprise. But if any of you happen to be professionals and you don't do this already, you better start now, because it's billable hours and it's the right thing to do. And that's what I tell the folks who come to my professional training programs. It's a really a great way to fall back in love with your yard.
I just want to make a note. There's a question about the soil testing. Again, that's an optional thing. So don't worry if you're not able to get your soil tested. We are still updating our soil testing website. So just give us a week or two to get that updated with this year, because we're going back in person and different locations, and we're working on it. A lot going on. Yep, this class is recorded, going to be on Brightspace. I'm going to say this loud and clear. Everybody asked, where are the recordings of the webinar? They're in the Discover, Engage, Assess portion of Brightspace under Engage. Last week, I do apologize, and they didn't get posted until I think Monday, but hopefully they're posted by Thursday every week. That's our goal. Well, yes.
Thanks for the questions and for your attention. I really look forward. You'll see me again, but
next week.
Yes, I knew that. I'll see you next week. I'll be here all night too if anyone wants to ask more questions, but we're here for you all, and we're really happy. Again, I think I said this the first time I talked to you all. We're really grateful to have you join the literal family. Vanessa and I are family. And you are all now part of it too. So have fun in your breakout sessions. I think it's time for that.
Yes, I do not save the chat logs, but you can each save the chat log yourself by clicking on the three dots where you type in your message, where it says more, and then click Save Chat. So that's an option for you all. Okay. I'm going to answer some of these other questions later. And in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen because it's time for mentor breakout sessions. But I want to just, well, first of all, I'm going to put this document in the chat. This is the expertise summary. If you want to take a look at that, if you haven't seen it yet, kind of start perusing that, open up that document. Is everybody able to open it? Are the sharing settings okay?
Yes.
Good, good, good. So you can take a look at that. That's our expertise document, just to kind of jog your memory about what the different groups may have said. And then here are the questions, and I can also throw these in the chat so that you all have them. And mentors, these are the questions you'll be using to guide the discussion in your group. If your discussion merges off course, that is quite all right. This is an opportunity for you to just reflect on what you've learned so far, share any tips for the site assessment project, answer any questions that you're able to. And if you're not able to answer questions, you can throw them in the chat and we all come back together in 20 or so minutes. So I'm going to just quickly share my screen and say what we're going to do is reflect on the identify unit. What skills and resources have you gained? How might you use these in the future? Reflect on the expertise discussion summary that I just sent you all, and that was in Brightspace. And then if there are any additional questions or tips from the mentors on the site assessment project. Okay, any questions before we go into our breakout rooms? Let me just see. Louise, the new week's assignment is usually the Monday of the previous week. So you usually have like 10 or so. We do give you 2 weeks of the information. I'm going to go right into the breakout rooms though now, and we will see you back here at 7:50. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. We're up to 156. That's pretty good. 157.
And Corinne's kitty. Oh, and Sari's
Sorry.
kitty too. There's a couple kitties.
Cats love the Zoom.
Oh, Andrea has a kitty. Oh.
So what questions came up? Anything you want to put in the chat that was unable to be answered, or anything a mentor wants to unmute and share? We'd love to hear from you all.
I mean, one comment that I had was just that, if you can hear me, that even after you've submitted your quizzes and things, sometimes you keep getting the messages saying that you have not submitted your quiz. So just don't worry about that. As long as the module says you're 100% complete, you'll continue to get 2 days worth of messages saying you have not completed, you have not completed. So I've just learned to ignore that. So I think that helps.
This is Christine. I just found out today because mine was showing that I was only 80% complete. There was always something missing that wasn't showing up. When you look at that overview video, it has the play button in the middle. That's how I've been watching it. But unless you go up above it and click on the link and then watch it, it doesn't document that you have watched the video. So I just figured that out tonight during office hours.
Yeah, thank you, because I had the same problem.
Vanessa, I have a question.
Okay.
Is any of the information available in any languages besides English? One of the ladies in our breakout group said that she's having it's just taking her extra time because English is not her first language.
The information for the course. Is that the question?
Yes. Any of the reading she wants to do.
Unfortunately, all of the information is in English only at this time. We do have some information for public audiences in different languages, but at this point, the course is only offered in English. We hope to offer it in other languages in the future. But if you need extensions to any of the work, we're happy to work with you. And that student can reach out to the intern email. It looks like there's a lot of questions about viewing the lecture in advance. The lectures are open before 3 to 4 days before the Wednesday class. So yes, you should be able to see the lectures. Is there a glitch in submitting the quiz and not showing today? I'm not a Brightspace expert. If you are having Brightspace issues, I suggest you send an email to the MGTA so we can address those one at a time.
The TAs are really your tech lean-ons. This time we should talk about the course content. So there's a good question from Kate in the chat about, does mulching leaves hurt caterpillar larvae? Also, can I put shredded leaves on my vegetable garden or would it pull nitrogen? Really great question. Leaving the leaves as they are as leaves is the highest and best thing you can do. Obviously, that's not always desirable because like oak leaves, for example, are thick. And if you have many of them, eventually they break down and lower the pH. So mulching, leaves, let me put it this way, the refuse, your organic material from your lawn and your yard is the best mulch there is. So if you can use leaves as mulch, I mulch my leaves. I use my mower without a bag and I run them over. And I make designs in my lawn and my family thinks I'm nuts, but it works and we have the nicest lawn on the road. So that's not really directly answering your question. I think anything you do to modify the landscape could potentially hurt something. Okay. So if you're mulching leaves, if there's caterpillar larvae in there, you might mulch them too. But I think it's a lot better to use the stuff on your property because of the microbial action that's going on and the good bugs that eat the pest bugs. Keep stuff on your property, use it to your advantage. And I put leaves down. I also put straw. It's straw, not hay, right, Joe? Looking at you. One of them's wrong, whichever one is not sterile and has seeds. But I put that down on the vegetable garden to keep weeds down. And I also put leaves. So I think those are both fine. Will leaving leaves on flower beds over winter breed disease? Suzanne, good question. I don't have problems with doing that. I chop the leaves up. I make designs. My neighbors probably think I'm nuts too. I don't care. But then I actually shovel the chopped stuff that's in the designs I've made over and put it on top of the flower beds. And and sometimes it's like serendipitous. You end up having as much decomposition and you don't even have to do anything. The daffodils and the crocus and the ephemerals spring up and pop through those leaves and it's like ready-made mulch. So I think every site is different. Your native soil, if it tends to be a little wetter and you're layering leaves, maybe it would cause problems, but
Hey, do you mind if I go to Gabriellen, who has had their hand up for a little while, if you want
Sure.
to and
Absolutely.
ask the question?
It was a mistake. I'm good.
What did she say? Oh, Kathy.
Kathy, do you have your hand up? Kathy Congdon?
Yes. So as far as the leaves in the garden, I left my leaves, but I didn't mulch them. So what's going to happen with that? And when do you take them off in the spring?
So as you get to know me personally, you'll find that I don't meddle in nature that much. So, the extent of the modification to my leaves is that I chop them up. And so therefore, then I found that I don't have to remove them. If you put whole leaves down, you kind of just have to use your judgment. I mean, it's the same, 15 years ago, we used to say, don't put more than 2 inches of mulch on perennials and don't put more than 3 inches of mulch on shrubs and trees because you don't want to suffocate, where the root flare comes out and there's air exchange happening there, yada, yada, yada. These days, if you're covering your soil, that's better than it not being covered, both for weeds, but also for erosion and keeping moisture, the right amount of moisture. So I would say the best answer for that, Kathy, is to observe how quickly the leaves are breaking down. If you notice that depending on what the area is, that stuff's having a hard time breaking through, then you might want to remove leaves. But generally your eyes are the best the best thing going for answering those kinds of questions, because it really depends on the rate of decomposition, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and what I found is that in the spring, when I rake the leaves off, the shoots, the new green shoots that are coming up are very pale. And so I'm thinking, oh, I should have taken them off sooner.
Mm.
And then what about all the moths and butterflies that are in those leaves? I heard also that you're not supposed to rake out your gardens too early in the spring because of that. So when do I do it?
If you do at all.
Oh,
Getting crazy. It's
you mean
8:01.
leave them on?
Yeah, I mean, all right, let me leave you with this story, and you guys can you can let it percolate, and we'll come back next week. And Vanessa's, you're going to watch a recorded lecture that Vanessa gives that's going to blow your mind about native plants and Lepidoptera and just how much is going on that you need to leave alone. So I read this story once that was like, okay, so God or Jah or whoever you believe in, Gaia, is looking down, and they see, and Kathy, since you've been such a good sport, I'm going to use you as an example here with love. So Gaia looks down and sees Kathy Congdon out in her yard, and she's raking, and she's got
And I
these
do that.
garbage bags. It's okay. Today is the first day of the rest of your life. So she's raking, and she's putting all this stuff she's raking into trash bags.
Right.
And then she's sending that away, and it's going in a landfill maybe. But then she goes out to the store and buys some fertilizer, some nitrogen. And she also has to get some insecticide because she's got pest insects. Well, I'm obviously inflating this point a little bit, but literally, if you think about your landscape as its own ecosystem, instead of raking, over time, if you leave the leaves, if you leave the twigs, if it looks a little disheveled and you can stand it, you have inherent pest control in that leaf litter. You have nitrogen being released as that organic matter is breaking down. So you don't need fertilizer. You don't need insecticide. You're not sending trash to the landfill. I could go on and on, and that was the way, that was normal. I mean, I grew up, my dad wore me in a, if you can believe it, he wore me in a backpack and mowed the lawn obsessively. Like he had the thing on two, probably when I was little, and then he would let me ride the lawnmower. I mean, I grew up with the dad who was like out there with tweezers, and it's okay, but we know now that tidiness and perfection, and that was an aesthetic that was like the 90s maybe. It's 2022. We know a lot more now about insect biodiversity and how important it is for the food web, how important it is. We know more. And so I guess the take home here at 8:04, we're over time, is that less is more. You want to add value to the landscape by either helping nature do what it does without human intervention, like adding native plants that are ecotypic to the region, or leaving the leaves, maybe just putting them in another place instead of on top of your lawn, or, less is more. And I think what you'll find if you do site assessment and make decisions based on your observations, you'll spend less money, you'll make less mistakes, you'll feel good about yourself, you'll be like the coolest person on your street with the best looking garden, and you'll be part of our team that's trying to change the world by roping people in who like plants, and everything's beautiful. So let's get some jazz hands. It's time for Kate to go to bed because I'm getting a little I wish you all lots of luck, and Vanessa and I will be back live next week, March 2nd, same place.